Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you today on a raw, overcast day that has me really wanting to talk to my imaginary BookTube friends, more so than usual. Through bad luck, bad timing, just kismet, karma, fate, whatever you want to call it, my YouTube and BookTube specific watching for most of today has been so bad. And all for the same reason: insincerity. To the video after video after video on subject after subject, not just BookTube, but YouTube as well. But unfortunately, BookTube really striking out along these lines. Video after video after video where I was watching until finally, after about an hour, maybe 90 minutes of, I wasn't just sitting there watching, I was doing other things, but they were on and I was paying attention. And after about an hour or 90 minutes, I just sat back and realized everyone that I've been listening to all day has just been burbling lies. Just, I'm conversational pattern. I'm not really thinking about it. I don't mean any of this. Just one long burble of lies the whole time, where people, they're in front of a camera, they don't mean a single thing they're saying. Not a single thing. Just totally inauthentic. Just, I either have a career where this thing is bringing me in lots of money every single video, or I want one and it's just assumed. We're not even going to debate it. It's just assumed that if you want a career like this, you have to be BSing the whole time. You can't mean anything. That might be something that you reserve for your private life, if it still exists there. But you certainly don't do it on a social media platform. No, instead, I'm just gonna burble. I'm just gonna podcast burble the whole time. I don't mean any of it. I don't care about what I'm saying. Just disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. And I got enough of that and then just thought, the only cure for this is just to talk with you. That's all. It's just to talk with you without burbling, without podcast lying my stupid face off the whole time. So we're going to go... right now, I'm probably that none of that made sense to you. But God almighty, after the day that I've had on YouTube, tonight, once I've calmed down, I don't want to overreact, but tonight, I'm going to set aside 30 minutes and go through my subscription feed like the scythe of the Lord. And I'm going to drop everyone who lies. I'm just going to do that. It's simple. I know this seems very naive. It's a social media platform. It's YouTube, for God's sake. So, of course, people are lying. We cede a lot of important moral ground when we cede something like that. I don't cede that ground at all. There's absolutely no reason. You might want to do it, and it might be good for your bottom line, but I'm not going to watch it anymore. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna wait until I'm calm, so that I'm not just deleting everything. I'm gonna wait until I'm calm, and then I'm essentially, over the course of the next week, going to build a different view schedule, an entirely different view stable is what I'm going to do. But not today, not right now. Right now we can talk about the mail. And the first thing I want to do with the mail is a package that I opened off camera yesterday. It snowed here yesterday, snow and sleet. The snow was always on the border of shifting either to or back to sleet. So it was pretty messy. It could get pretty messy. And there was a box on the front porch that the person who dropped it off would have been easily possible for them to put it under an eave and protect it at least a little, but no, instead it was out in the elements. It was sopping wet and covered in kind of rimey slush. So I had to open it. There was no way that I was going to sit and leave it. There was a chance that the things inside wouldn't be damaged the way it were now, but if I'd sat and waited until it was time to open packages on camera, they would certainly have been destroyed. And it turns out it was the right decision, because it was 3 books in the box, a trilogy, and they aren't destroyed. They're old, they're from the 80s, but they're not water damaged. And it was rather charming. Now, I have the books here, but I don't have the package, and I don't have the note. There was a little note inside. This is a violation of rule number 1. From one of you, those of you who are new to this channel, and there are some new people, I'm noticing there are new people. Rule number 1 on this channel is don't send me a book. Don't do it. You might be thinking, well, he loves to read, and he reads all the time, and he has tons and tons of books, so I've got these books here, and I'm not going to use them, so I'll send them to him. No, I know what I want. And I get tons of books anyway. So, as you're going to see today, so it's a waste of your time and a waste of mine. I will try my best to put on a grateful smile if I open them on camera, but they're going out. The chances are 99.9 out of 100 that they're not going to stay, that they're getting lost. And that means it's a waste. That's just a waste of time. Clear it with me ahead of time if you absolutely insist. But usually the best way to give me a book is to call in store credit at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. I'm there all the time, and that credit will go to good use. It will get me exactly what I want instead of your inevitably erroneous assumption of what I want. And in addition to that, you get the fringe benefit of a mail haul. But in this particular case, it was completely charming. The person involved here did send me something that I don't actually have and that I hadn't actually read, I realized. And the note was kind of funny. The note was, I wanted you to have these before Ben Shapiro gets his hands on them. Something along, I think that's pretty close to what the note said. Which is intriguing on its own, and it's this. It's Stephen Lawhead's Pendragon Cycle. Taliesin, Merlin, and Arthur. Oh, there with the 80s Princess Di feather hair we've got there going on. Someone sent me these with a note saying, I wanted you to have these before Ben Shapiro gets his hands on them, which might be a little mysterious to you, and it was a little bit mysterious to me until I realized that the Daily Wire has bought these. They have optioned the Pendragon Cycle of Stephen Lawhead for a gigantic production. They, like every other media network platform, they want their own Lord of the Rings. They want their own Game of Thrones. And I guess when it's the Daily Wire, they also have a very, very strident ideological bent that they want to import into the material. I guess they think they can find that in the Pendragon story. And I've had a lot of Stephen Lawhead books over the years. A lot of you fantasy purists are going to hate this, but to me, he's always struck me as relatively similar to David Gemmell, where I know that he has fans, but I've never been one. Where the stuff just seems to sit on the page. There was one particular novel of his from the early 1990s, I believe it was, that had a particular cover illustration that I did not want to ignore, but the book itself. But so I looked at these things and I thought, okay, well that's really neat. This trade paperback trilogy hasn't been around since the 1980s, so that's interesting. I will certainly thank the person as soon as the note dries out and I can read their address. But I was looking at them and I thought, okay, well, but you saw these in bookstores and you at the time and you thought, again, heresy for all of you fantasy fans, but the Arthurian stuff has never really done all that much for me. I mean, I have loved Arthurian stuff. Definitely, I love Les Morts d'Arthur. I love The Once and Future King. I love the wife of Jim Morrison did a trilogy of Arthurian stuff, Arthurian high fantasy science fiction that I thought was really well done. And a bunch of other stuff too, Arthur Rex by Thomas Berger, but the minutia of it, the socio-mythical basis of it, all that sort of stuff, hasn't really ever done it much for me. And I remembered, after I thought about it a bit, I didn't go back to my reading journals, but after I thought about it a bit, I remembered that I ignored these when they first came out. And I thought, well, okay, the series starts with Taliesin, and it was very nice of this person to send these. I'm glad they weren't damaged. I'm glad they weren't waterlogged beyond repair. So why don't I read this? I mean, it is going to be on the Daily Wire. You're going to be seeing it. You're going to be hearing about it, especially if their Pendragon adaptation flops the way the recent Gina Carano movie did. And, they have an ideological basis. They are trying to change the ideology of the culture. In their case, in purely nefarious ways, but it's still really interesting. So I knew that it was going to be out there. Certainly they'll commission new cover art, and, a new concept art, all that sort of thing. Who knows who will star in it. So I read Taliesin. I thought, you've got room on your reading docket tonight, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I remembered Lawhead as being kind of a Raymond Feist style stiff over-egger when it comes to fantasy literature, every crockery bowl described in detail, and all the women folksy wise, all the men sternly stoic, all that sort of thing. No, not at all. Taliesin was fantastic. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So evocative. And that is the least, conceptual wise, subject matter wise, it's the least interesting of the three. So I'm definitely going to move on with the trilogy. I'm glad, whoever you're watching and you sent this to me, thank you very much. I'm worried that it will cause a general outbreak of violations of rule number 1. I got a sort of a command performance violation of rule number 1 the other day. A lot of you loved that video. I had a fun time making it. But I stressed at the time, the gate is not open. You should not send me books. But this person sent me this trilogy, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to make room for on the shelf, and I'm going to read Merlin next. So that was one package that I opened off camera. And then we have all the stuff that's still in packages, and a periodical. I got the London Review of Books. Kind of thought that my subscription had petered out on this thing, but it has not. And this has the piece in here that I think I'm going to enjoy more than any of the others is Jeffrey Wheatcroft. The critic Jeffrey Wheatcroft does a roundup review of the 3 huge Diaries of Chips Cannon that have been brought out in these gorgeous editions. One of you sent me one of them, and another one of you sent me another one of them. So I don't have the third one, but these huge volumes of a guy named Chips Cannon, who was a great diarist. Every diary anthology has him in there because he's so invaluable. He was invited to all the right houses at all the right time. He was present, third guy from the left, at every piece of history in his time. And he went home and wrote about it all really engagingly. So I know that piece is going to be fun to read. But let's look at the mail here, and we'll open these packages. We don't have any boxes. A small pile of packages, but no boxes. And once again, we are going to be very careful. I'm not going to mimic the habits that outraged me and sent me to make a video. The rampant inauthenticity, just people just burbling at the camera. I hate you. You're an audience. I hate you. I want money. I want to be able to be a horrible boss to interns. I want to be able to say, look, I'm not vibing with it. Ugh, disgusting. Just disgusting. People who have completely lost track of the fact that they haven't said a true word on camera in years. All the while, puppy dog eyeing and saying, I just want to be real with you guys, Oh, just, it's all going. It's all going. But I don't want to mimic that inauthenticity, but nevertheless, it's not inauthenticity, but it is an excess of caution. I have had to delete several long videos in this year, in January 2023 alone, because I was provoked by the mail I got to go off on a rant. So I'm going to try not to do that. We're going to try not to do that for this mail haul. That's not the same thing as lying. So let's very cautiously look at this first thing. This first thing is a piece of translated literature. Let's get rid of all the folderol. Let's see here. Okay. The pub sheet is telling me nothing interesting and nothing useful either. So I don't have a date on this, but it's a hardcover, so it's probably out now. This is a translated literature. This is Deceit, a novel called Deceit by Yuri Felson, translated by Brian Karetnik. And it's unfortunately the return of the incredibly hideous American cover. But the cover's not everything. Let's see what we have here. Once considered the Russian Proust. Is that meant as a compliment? Yuri Felson tells the story of an obsessive love affair set in interwar Europe in this novel, an experimental novel in the form of a diary that is an as yet undiscovered landmark of Russian émigré literature. An as yet undiscovered landmark. When did Yuri originally publish this? 1930. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, great. We meet our unnamed narrator in Paris in the 1920s, where he finds himself an expat after the Russian Revolution. Helen Rappaport, After the Revolution. Don't miss that book. What a book. Oh, man. At a friend's request, he meets the beautiful, clever socialite Leola, also a recent exile from Russia. What begins as a casual friendship quickly turns into fascination and obsession as Leolia gives mixed signals and pursues other men. Our narrator, emerging from a depression, is soon overwhelmed by the very idea of her, which begins to contour all of his observations, thoughts, and feelings. There's the Russian novel part coming in. While she continues to live a life unencumbered by the forces of social convention and history, our narrator's revelations, written in diary form, grow increasingly painful, familiar, and rich with psychological introspection. Okay, I am definitely on board. I don't have any details about this thing. I'm assuming that it's a January or early February release, but great. Translated literature from the 1930s. An overlooked, as yet unheralded Russian master. Clearly that means I should email Zach at the Brattle and find out what he thinks of this person. Okay, this next one is really thin, really tiny. Oh, it's a slim volume of poetry. Okay, we've already seen this. We got an advance copy of this. Let me deal with this here. Get rid of all this extra stuff. I do not need your mother's recipe for bouillabaisse. Okay, this is late February. This is poems by Adam Zagajewski, translated from the Polish by Claire Kavanaugh. So more translated literature. Tiny little thing. Just tiny, called True Life. Take 15 minutes to read. And Adam Zagajewski died in 2021. Is a poet of fleeting things, of the experience of transience and the memory's mission to valiantly fail in counteracting the passage of time. Yes, I'm sure. Like we've mentioned on this channel, there isn't really any good way to do a pub sheet about poetry. So you now know that it's got a tiny little finished copy that's coming out in February. So we can move on. Well, let's see what this next one is. We have paperwork. What kind of paperwork do we have? W.W. Norton. Great. Okay, this comes out in May. This comes out in May as a $30 hardcover. This is by Kelly McMasters, and it's called The Leaving Season. And we go back to a pretty cover. There's a farm at the top there, an urban scape at the bottom, and ripped in between them, just a still life with a flower there. Very, very nice. And this book navigates marriage and motherhood, art and ambition, grief and nostalgia, and the elusive concept of home. The author found herself in her mid-30s living her fantasy. She'd moved with her husband, a painter, from New York City to rural Pennsylvania, where their children roamed idyllic acres in rain boots and diapers. The pastoral landscape and the bookshop they opened were restorative at first for her and her marriage, but soon she was quietly plotting escape. So this is a collection of memoirs, memoir and essays and that sort of thing. Very interesting. May, the leaving season. We're getting there. We're getting there. We got a couple of packages left here. They are cardboard, so we'll have to make a little noise opening them. What is this first one? Okay. Lots and lots of extra material here. All right, this one comes out in early February. This is another modern contemporary romance with a cartoon cover, but at least they have faces on this one. This is by April Asher, and it's called Not Your Ex's Hexes. Love was never part of their arrangement. Not Your Ex's Hexes. This is part of the Supernatural Singles series, so I guess the hexes will be literal here. A one-night stand between a willful witch and a broody half-demon conjures an adventure that wouldn't be complete without several magical mishaps. For her entire life, Rose Maxwell trained to become the next prima on the Supernatural Council. Now that she's stepped down, it's time for this witch to focus on herself, and not to think about her impulsive one-night stand with Damian Adams, a half-demon veterinarian who she can't help get out of her head. Half-demon veterinarian. Okay, why would you... so many questions. If you're half demon, do you need to eat? Do you need to sleep? Do you need a house? And if you don't, why would you get a job? Neither of them is looking for a relationship, but when Rose is sentenced to community service at Damien's animal sanctuary, it becomes impossible to ignore their sparking attraction. Friends with benefits, no feelings, no strings arrangement works perfectly for both of them. After a sequence of dead-end jobs, it's not until Rose tangos with 2 snarly demons that she thinks she's finally found her path. However, this puts Damien back on the periphery of a world he thought he left behind. He doesn't approve of Rose becoming a hunter, and that's with a capital H, so I guess demon hunter. But if there's one thing he's learned about the stubborn witch, it's telling her not to do something was a surefire way to make sure she did. Okay. All right, so this comes out in early February, a contemporary supernatural romance. I wonder if Sarah at the Bookish Knitter knows this about this author. I do not think I know this author's name at all. April Asher. Not Your Ex's Hexes. Never know what I'm going to get on this channel. And then the final package here, and then we'll be done. Let's see what we have here. I'll make a mess on the floor, but I'm going to clean it all up. I'm going to clean up after myself. Let's get rid of that. What have we got here? Oh my, this comes out in July. That's a long way away. This may be the latest that I have. What have we got here? Oh my. Okay. This is called The Parrot and the Igloo. The Climate and the Science of Denial by David Lipsky. Another beautiful cover. Just fantastic. What's going on here? What's going on here? David Lipsky is one of those rare writers who can write eloquent, deeply informed, compulsively readable books about just about anything. His name rings a bell. His best-selling, critically acclaimed works include the memoir, Although of Course You End Up Becoming Yourself. Oh, that was his insufferable book about David Foster Wallace. Oh my God. Oh my God. The whole time I was reading that, I wanted to just keep saying, get a room. Just get a room and get it over with. Don't bother to write a book. But didn't he write something that I liked? Absolutely American. 4 years at West Point, which was really, really good. Actually, in its way, Although of Course You End Up Becoming Yourself was also really, really good. Here he turns his prodigious talent to the twin stories of our lifetime, climate change and truth. He explores how anti-science became virulent in American life through the history of climate denial and its consequences. Climate change has become an unavoidable fact and ongoing catastrophe. The science was clear decades ago. How do so many Americans come to doubt evidence so widely accepted and compelling? Oh my, I wonder if he's going to talk to some of those Americans. That would be depressing. Okay, well this comes out in July. The Parrot and the Igloo. Fantastic. I'm on board. I'm a big fan of W. Edward Norton anyway, but fantastic. Of course, it's a long way off. We'll be in the middle of a roasting hot summer when this book comes out. So there you go. There was the mail. And it was perfectly safe. And more importantly, it was perfectly sincere. I didn't burble at you. I didn't call you guys, guys, guys. I didn't make hand gestures with my microphone. I didn't do anything like that. I just talked to you as if you were here in the room. Anyway, The Parrot and the Igloo. Not Your Ex's Exes. We have the leaving season. She gets everything she wants. Move to the peaceful countryside. None of the rat race. Own a bookstore. But it isn't enough. It isn't right. It starts to eat away at her. So this is almost a novel. It's certainly going to be fascinating to find out why. Then we have Adam Zagajewski, tiny little thing here, slim volume of poetry called Still Life, True Life. Deceit by Yuri Felson, a fascinating bit of translation because it's not a contemporary figure. It's a lost figure from the 1930s. That's incredible. And also the Pendragon Cycle of Stephen Lawhead. Taliesin, Merlin, and Arthur. A real surprise, not only to get the books when you are all strictly under orders not to send me things, but also that I liked Taliesin so much, the first book in the series. I really, really enjoyed it. So that was a surprise all around. Very happy, a very happy surprise. So there you go. That's the mail. We've got weather coming. I think tomorrow's going to be mostly clear, but we've got another big block of precipitation coming. Precip, as the weather dudes say. It looks to me like Boston is mostly going to get rain, but I think parts north are going to get buried in snow again. And it looks also the millibar, the lines between the pressure lines makes it look like for a little while, no matter what we're getting, it's going to be pretty fierce. It's going to be pretty strong while it's happening. But I got all my errands done today. And by Friday, it will all be a distant memory. So I am ready to hunker down, which should be great. Hunkering down when you've got books to read, always a lot of fun. But anyway, and I really mean that, guys. I mean, from the heart. Sorry, I don't mean to vent. I will take care of the problem myself in the simplest way possible. A way I should have done years ago. Especially since I myself have been the one saying without any provocation at all, the drop of a hat, that hate watching anything is a waste of time. A serious waste of time. And here I am doing it. Or maybe not hate watching, but hoping that someone I know and have known for years has not a sincere bone in their entire body might suddenly have a change of heart. And say, you know, I'm not going to script this and then lie about not scripting it. I'm not going to have anybody else in the room and lie about somebody else being in the room. Instead, I'm just literally going to say what I want. I'm literally going to say what I think. To people to whom I owe everything. I get $17,000 a month because of you. And yet I hold you in nothing but seething, completely visible contempt. I'm going to go through my subscription list. That's all. And I'm also going to make free use of that YouTube feature. When the algorithm suggests something to you, you click on the 3 dots there. One of the suggestions, one of the actions that you can do there is to tell the algorithm not to recommend that channel to you anymore, whether you subscribe or not. I don't want to see this recommendation anymore. It tends to work. I'm going to curate. That's what I'm going to do. But first, we have mail. A nice big patch of mail. That's great. And it's good to talk to you. So I will wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.